Hey y'all, welcome back to the Powerlifting Podcast. I'm your host, Solana Lewis. Today I speak with two-time world champion and Sheffield champion Evie Corrigan, and we actually talk about her role as the president of Auckland Powerlifting and the secretary of New Zealand Powerlifting. And she recently in September basically ran the entire week of New Zealand Nationals. And so getting to hear this side of her role in the sport of powerlifting, along with her as an elite level world champion athlete, was a really great conversation. I think you will really enjoy it. And if it's not your first time here and you came back, that means you must have liked us enough to come back. Please go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on podcasts for Apple and Spotify. If you're on Apple, please write out a actual review with your rating. We appreciate it so much. It gets us more listens on the podcast. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. All right, y'all. I'm excited. We have a returning guest, a two-time world champion and Sheffield champion, Evie Corrigan. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me back, Solana.
I'm so excited to talk to you because I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw this post. It was right after New Zealand Nationals ended, and you're talking about how you pretty much organized it and how like it was a lot. I was like, I didn't realize you organized like that's insane because I know that must be so much work, but also you compete at such a high level. I know you have as long as I remember correctly, a full-time job as a teacher. So I'm like, how was it organizing New Zealand Nationals?
So yeah, I do work during the week, but it's not entirely full time, but then I do a day of coaching. So I guess it becomes full time when you add those days together. So that yeah, is like a Monday to Friday job. Um and then I am the president of our local association. So that's like Auckland Powerlifting, which is the region that we're in, and then the secretary of New Zealand Powerlifting Federation, we're our national body. So that was how I ended up falling into helping to organize nationals. We the way we planned to do it was like combining two local associations like committees to run the event. So like in theory we had extra hands, but sort of like half of each committee was helping out. So then that only really makes one committee in the end. But yeah, it was I think like something I'm really proud of because we pulled it off and it was awesome and like people only had good things to say and it ran really smoothly and like everything looked beautiful. But I don't think I really anticipated like the after effects like of organizing something like that. Like I was all good up until the meet, like just yeah, boom, 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 getting everything done. And then afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired.
I hear that from just local meet directors who like put on like one of their first meets. They're like, this was insane, and they just like die after. Like not literally, but they like drop of exhaustion. I think I'm curious as someone who's never put on a meet of any sort at all. And I don't think I necessarily want to, honestly. I think I want to be a volunteer forever. But what is some of the hardest parts of organizing a big meet?
Finding the right people because like I don't know what it's like in the US. I think that there's like a bit more you guys have a bit more resources, but it's pretty much fully volunteer based here. So
Mm.
nobody is getting paid either in the organization of the competition or like volunteering or like helping out during the competition. Like no one is getting any money. So the hard part is trying to find people who are willing to do, the jobs that need to be done. And there's more than you would think about. Like um you've got to organize all of those volunteers. You need to make a timetable. You need to organize people to pack in and out. You need to design how the layout of the venue is going to be. You need to make sure that you've got enough bathrooms and rubbish bins. And, there's all of the tech side of things, which is what makes a meet run really smoothly and look really cool, but is like quite labor intensive. And you really need someone with good expertise to be able to do that stuff. And that can be really tricky to find those people who are willing to do that for free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that is, and like a week-long meet is a lot of volunteers. So you're juggling trying to get like a lot of people to come and help out.
Okay, like how many volunteers is it? Do you have an idea?
So I think I worked out that each session we needed, and this is gonna like betray how bad my math skills are, but we
I
needed
got you. I got a
like
pen. I'm ready.
we needed about 20 people per session, and we had 10 sessions across the day. Oh, there you go. So yeah, that's what,
Okay.
200 people.
Yes, that's 200. That's a lot.
So yeah, that's a lot. And that's like that's just to run the sessions, right? Like that's not anyone, any of the people who were like organizing it, or doing any of the behind the scenes stuff. That was just like, referees, spot loaders, desk staff, that kind of thing.
Oh my God. So, how did you go about, like, specifically with technology? Because I've seen meets where they weren't ready for the technological issues that can happen, and like stuff is crashing, they don't know what to do. Like, how did you go about finding someone to help out with the technology? Especially when everything is like, okay, so we say volunteer in America, right? We say volunteer. But honestly, I think we do have more resources because I can at least speak on the USAPL, which is obviously not the Fed with IPF anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
for our nationals, they were offering, okay, let me see if I remember this. State referees, I believe, was $100 per session, and
Mm,
then national referees 150 a session, and then the higher up, category 1 and 2 referees are 200 a session. And that is something
right.
that they started since 2023. Before that was way less money, but they started bumping up a lot more because they were like, we really need good volunteers and we are struggling. And I know that must have been hard. So how did you go about finding people, especially for free?
Yeah, so the referees they do get some money, but only at national meets, so they already have to be national level or higher, and they get considerably less than that. So we like $50 per session if you're from that area, and $100 per session if you have to come from out of town. So the referees get something, and then we just try to make it like as enjoyable as an experience as possible. So,
Mm,
I think like that comes down to the same things as what makes it good for lifters, right? Like that it's well organized, that everyone understands like what time things are going to be happening, like everything runs to time. It's a nice venue, it has good facilities. Um, we always feed our volunteers. They get a free competition t-shirt. We provided free banquet tickets to volunteers who did 3 sessions or more. Just like trying to add in little perks there. I think like anyone who's like within a volunteer organization, it's just like the age-old problem of like how do you gather up volunteers? How do you inspire people to give back their time? And there's sort of like it kind of like goes in two directions. Like either you get people who say, well, oh, you should make it mandatory, like they're not allowed to compete internationally unless they volunteer a certain number of sessions, or they like have to volunteer at least once a year in order to keep their membership valid, or
mm,
things like that. But like that's not really I don't really like that approach. I don't want it to be this like punishment. I don't want it to be a punitive thing. I want people to volunteer because they want to help out the sport, because they are, passionate about giving back. And thankfully, like we do have people who are super passionate and will do like 8 sessions out of 10 or something like that. They give well above and beyond what is sort of like reasonable, I guess. I always think if every lifter who competed gave back 1 session, we'd have like more than enough volunteers. Like that's all we need is just pay it forward. Like you get 1 session, you give 1 session in your time. Um, but yeah, I think like we just have to promote the culture of volunteering, which is like more of a long-term game, but just really highlighting what people are doing and like shouting them out, and really encouraging people at every opportunity to volunteer, making it really easy for them to volunteer. So, putting out forms that are super easy to just fill in, making it really clear what each of the roles are. So like I think that's one of the biggest barriers is people don't know. They're like, oh, but I don't know how to do anything. So like I can't help. Which I don't know if that's kind of an excuse, but I've spent quite a lot of time like writing out instructions and description of roles and making like little tutorial videos and stuff like that. So, it's really easy for people to learn how to do those roles.
That's really smart because one major thing that I've seen being an issue, um, I would say we do with TPIL right now, but just in general, lacking of communication, especially when we needed more volunteers. There just wasn't a lot of info put out about like what volunteers we needed, what it takes to be a volunteer, like what credentials, quote, right? Because you need to have right to volunteer. And when you said people don't understand what they need, I'm thinking to myself, I bet you like for us, we can have state refs at the meet. You cannot referee, but like there's still other rules they can do, like scores table and stuff. And I feel like I only know that because I pay close attention and I'm heavily involved in the sport. But I think a big thing that people don't even think to volunteer is one, we don't really put out like, hey, we really need the volunteers. And two, we don't even talk about like what exactly you need to do as a volunteer. So like you just
Mm.
saying you made videos is so smart. I don't see videos made of like this is what this is. I don't see that.
Yeah, I think like it's easier than people think it is. Like they think that it's going to be really complicated, but most of the time it's like I say to people a lot, like we all started somewhere, like we all started as complete beginners. None of us were trained in any of these roles.
Yeah.
And when I started volunteering, like there was way less hand holding or like there wasn't really much of an introduction at all. We were just kind of like showed up and they were like, yep, cool, you're ready, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But we all just kind of like found our way. So I think people shouldn't be intimidated about volunteering because it's inherently something that you're just like not trained for. Like you're signing up to help out. It's expected that you don't really know what you're doing, and someone who's I guess like a good meet director who or whoever's in the role of organizing volunteers should be prepared for that and should be super welcoming and like available for you to ask questions and like available to show you the ropes. But I guess I mean that's in an ideal world where there's like lots of capacity. But yeah, it's like it's okay to just learn on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think it's probably easier than your day job. Like I think you have the skills. Like writing out a manual score sheet is just like ticking numbers off, and even the computer software is like the what we use, which is Lifting Cast, is like super intuitive, like really easy to use. Like the buttons are like thumbs up, thumbs down. You're like, oh, I can work that out.
Yeah. I personally, so I'm always scared of helping out with the scoring table. Like I'm just like, no, I'm not good with numbers. I can't do it. Like I can write down your next attempt. That is it. Like I remember one time I was doing the scores table, which happens like twice in my life so far. Like I would volunteer and referee all the time. I've even spotted and loaded. No, I don't do scores table. So I'm sitting there, and then the girl in charge of lifting cats needs to go to the bathroom. Girl, she thought I had it. When I tell you we got through the next lifter, I messed up. We had to stop for 5 minutes. I was like, and this is why I need a video on how to use lifting cast. She was like, just press this and this. Walked away. I was like, there's no hope for me. I'm drowning.
Yeah, so maybe yeah, that handover wasn't the best, but I mean it's like also like you just play to your strengths, right? Like but there are things that people are comfortable doing. And like sometimes they're like super comfortable with doing desk stuff and sometimes people are like, no, I just want to spot load, and then you get people who are like, I'm too small to spot load, like I can't do it. Which I think is like I totally get that because it can be really intimidating, but generally if you've got like 5 spotters, like you're probably going to be all right up to most weight classes. But yeah, I think like you can start small, start with something that's less intimidating to you. People really love to do like the live stream commentary. I think that's like an easy pathway into volunteering because it's really fun. And it also like it adds a lot to the experience of anyone watching the live stream as well. So like I'm all for that.
Okay, so live stream commentary is my absolute favorite role in the meet. And I can definitely say we struggle to get them. I'm always like number one, like raise my hand, please have me commentate the live stream. I think people think of it in the way of like public speaking, and they get really nervous to do it because we end up having to hunt people down. Like, please, somebody, like Solana can't do all of it herself. Can someone please come over and help? But
Yeah,
I think it's the
that's
most exciting
true.
part.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I really enjoy doing it. I only managed to do one session at nationals because I always end up doing jobs that are less fun, like refereeing. I I do not like refereeing at all. If I
I
could be
like
on
it.
like speaker, I love being speaker. I love live stream commentary. I like being on the computer. Actually, I like spot loading as well.
Oh, oh,
I
oh.
hate refereeing. The thing I like about spot loading is like you feel like you're so involved, like you're right there with them, like you're really a part of the action. You can yell at them as much as you want. It's really like active, whereas like refereeing, you're just sitting in a chair for so many hours. And I like the sort of like little battle you get going with like the other half of the loading team, like who can load it fastest. So yeah, spot loading's pretty fun.
Oh my God. Okay, that totally makes sense because I will say when I referee, my hip is definitely locking up on me by the time we finish the squats. I'm like, all right, like, can I stand up for this bench and deadlift session? But I will say I've spotted load 2 times in my life. I'm not doing that ever again. I'm sorry. Like, and people listening, please do volunteer and spot and load. It's not for me. Like, I think I just have a heart attack. I think what it is, the first time I ever spotted and loaded, there was one person whose squat I ruined. I'll never forget it. And it ruined my life for like the idea of spotting and loading. This girl was coming up, and like I swear I saw the bar start to come down. So I grabbed it, but like no one was really paying attention. So she didn't
Uh,
get a relift, and I knew it was my fault, but like there was no one. It wasn't national. There was like a local meet, and like there was like no one to really ask about said relift, and we kind of just
mm,
kept moving. And I was like, after that, I was like, oh my God, I ruined her life. I ruined her life. I ruined her life.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like it's okay to make mistakes though. But I guess like other people have to be paying attention. Because like as a spot loader, like if you think that they're like in danger, you do what you got to do. Like you grab it. And if the referee disagrees with you, then like all good, like they can give them another lift. Like I think like when you're in the moment and you're really close to the bar and like you can't really see the whole lift, like if you see it going down, then like you just yeah, like use your instinct, I think, and just yeah, just grab it. But I think like people can be really hard on themselves and also like on the people who are volunteering, like when they make mistakes, but they're just volunteers and like any mistake pretty much can be rectified. Like, if it's an issue with the scoring, like we can sort it out. Like we can stop for a minute while the scorer catches up. If it's a misloading error, it's all good. We can give them another lift. Like we can. The main thing is like if you put too much pressure on people, then they're like more likely to make mistakes and like rush and like panic and just yeah, it's we can deal with all of that.
Do you guys do a tutorial on how to spot and load?
Yeah, so when we have like a fully written out like manual by one of our committee members, which is awesome, like that he put in so much time to like write out all this stuff. And then usually when we assign people to spot loading, we've got a head spotter loader who's that like center one, and they'll do a quick run through with the people on for that session, just be like, hey, like one person needs to do this, one person needs to do this. So it's just like you do need those like crucial, like good experienced people to kind of lead everyone else along. Yeah.
No, I agree because even watching our nationals, like the spotting and loading team is so precise. I'm just like, you guys are a well-oiled machine. So there's like a science behind it where it's like the person who's in charge, someone's calling out the number, and then
Yeah.
everyone knows their exact place and they know exactly what to do to know where to put the place on the tree. I'm like, y'all got it. Like it takes that. Like I know too. We have in Virginia, the state chair for USAPL is Saber, And he like does like it's not a course, but like he'll have the spotters and loaders come in like a different day and like teach it
Mm.
how to spot and load. And I think he pays them for it because I'm like, you're having to come in like a whole other day. But I'm like, but I look at them like they are so proficient, it's worth it. Like they're such a proficient team. I'm like, I'm gonna stand here and watch you. Like
Well, one of the like the biggest impacts on like how fast a meet runs is the spot loading team. So
hmm
that like, it can make a huge difference if they're not running really smoothly. Like, and you know, if you've got like back-to-back sessions, you're like, we can't have this. Like, you guys need to pick up the pace.
hmm
So, but I think, yeah, like most of the time, like they'll fall into step, like they'll find that rhythm after a few attempts of being like, okay, I'm going to be the one that takes off the collar and like takes off the change plates, and then like you're going to pick up the heavier plate to put it on, and then I'll put the collar back on, and like the head spotter loader will be the one who like calls out what plates are going on and then changes the rack heights. Like, you know, like once everyone kind of gets an idea of what their roles are, it like runs way more smoothly. But I mean, it would be great to have them all come in and do like a course. I don't think we're there.
That's fair. I'm pretty sure he's the only person I know who does that. So
Yeah, I mean, it definitely like it makes a difference if you have experienced photo loaders. Things just run super fast, and like you see that at Worlds, like they're they're really good at what they do.
amazing.
They're basically
Yes.
like this is their thing.
Yes, I know. How did you become the president of Auckland Powerlifting? Do you have to get voted in?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like no contest. Like no one wants to do it.
You're like, I walked
um
in.
so yeah, I started out volunteering in like 2018. So I got qualified as a ref first, and I was sort of like climbing my way through the ranks, and then I started to be like, oh, what else can I help with? Like I'm a quite organized person, so I like doing that kind of thing. And I can't remember when I joined the committee. It might have been the same year. Um, and then we organized Commonwealths in 2022. So that was held in Auckland. And I had quite a lot to do with the organization of that competition. And that was when I kind of realized, like, okay, I am actually quite capable, like, at organizing things. And I think the following year, so that would have been the comp was like end of November, and then we have our AGM end of February. So I then after that comp, the guy who'd been president for like 10 years up until that point, and he had like two young kids, and like he'd been doing it for so long, he decided he was finally going to step down. I think that he like saw that we kind of had it, and he was like, yeah, okay, like I feel like I'm ready to step down, because like when he first stepped onto the committee, he just did everything because there wasn't anyone else. So
Yeah.
he was like, I'm going to step down, and I was like, okay, I guess it's me then. Like, I tried to convince someone else to come on as like co-president, but that didn't work. So I just, yeah.
But no, because no one wants. Okay.
No one wants to. So yeah, I put my hand up.
So besides planning nationals, what is your role then as president?
So we each local association like runs their own competitions.
hmm
It's not like, yeah, and then you can like bid for national level competitions. I say bid very loosely. Again, it's like if you put your hand up for it, then like you get it.
You're like bid, and there's no chance the answer is no. Got it.
No, nobody else wants it. Begrudgingly take on the responsibility of running the national competitions.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we'll run our other local comps throughout the year as well. And I think this year we'll run 4, I think. Yeah. So we have our last comp of the year coming up, sort of like towards the end of November. And then I guess like my job within that is just making sure that those competitions happen.
hmm
Yeah, like organizing everyone else's roles, and um generally just like keeping things moving along. I feel like as president, you're the one who just has to be like constantly onto it and like making sure that stuff is happening, and like holding everyone else accountable to the things that they've committed to. So we committed to like a few running a few 3-lift workshops, and we have a memorandum of understanding with Special Olympics New Zealand, so we help them out with their competitions as well. Sometimes we lend out gear to other groups wanting to run events, things like that. So yeah.
Awesome. And then as secretary of New Zealand Powerlifting.
So yeah, that one's quite like an admin heavy role, as like
Okay.
secretary would suggest, right? Like it's like all the kinds of comms within the organization. I guess I also took on extra jobs, like organizing funding for our referees and international coaches, like those going overseas for competitions. Like we've been working out funding for them finally, because we didn't used to do that at all, and they just had to pay their own way, which
Oh my
was
gosh.
super expensive, as you can imagine, like from New Zealand. Keeping a track of like all of our members, and like an up-to-date membership list, taking notes at meetings, sending out the minutes. Yeah, I take the dispensation applications. So people can't compete at meet, they email me their application, and then I get that approved. And yeah, it's lots of like email-y type behind the scenes stuff that like is super boring and no one ever wants to do.
You're like, I do everything everyone hates to make sure that we have powerlifting in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I was about to ask you.
I
Oh,
could have a worse job. There's like sometimes when we occasionally get complaints, the people who have to sit in those like complaints hearings and like mediations and stuff. Thankfully, I don't do that.
okay, that's better. That sounds very miserable, actually. No one
And
wants to hear that all day.
yeah, there's also the person who organizes like our international teams, like entering people into good lift, and like I don't think people realize how much work it is to send teams overseas, but like it's so much back and forth. Like you have to send in like the hotel bookings and like the banquet ticket bookings and the transport bookings, and people change
Mm.
their mind like every like week. They're like, oh, actually I want to do this now, and like that poor woman who like has to do that. And our team has grown like so much this year, so it's like way more people, and she's trying to, yeah, so that's also a really sucky job. I'm not really promoting it. If
You're
anyone
like
would
me.
like to join, it's great.
Uh, are these all volunteer positions? Like you being president and secretary, and the poor lady who is
Who's our
drowning
team
with complaints?
manager? Yeah, it's all volunteered. Like,
Mhm.
and in the NZPF, for the treasurer, secretary, and president, we get like an honorarium, um, which is like a small amount of money that we get each year, but
Mm.
it's it's not even close to the amount of work.
No, I
But
understand. Like, good.
I actually really like that role. Like, I think being secretary, like I really feel like I have a hand in what's happening in the Fed, and like I can make things happen. I can propose changes to rules, and like, you know, I really feel like I'm doing something. So
Mm.
that's pretty cool.
No, that's huge because honestly, when like we're not an Olympic sport, so we're always is even though powerlifting's grown so much, we're so small. So we kind of expect it to be mostly volunteer work, but when you really love it, like that's how you get people to do it. Like that's how we've grown powerlifting, like volunteers who just really love it and want to get back to it. So
I wish I could make a job out of it, to be honest, because like there's so much more stuff that I want to do, but I have to live.
yep.
So I need money to survive. So like, yeah, I wish that I could dedicate more time to it, to be honest, but we're just not there yet. Like, I don't know, maybe in a little bit. Um, and I mean, there's also you can like apply for funding and stuff like that, but it's like a whole other, you have to put in a lot of time in order to secure that funding.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a whole another thing that just comes down to like having the capacity. Yeah.
Like applying for grants. Is it called grants over there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Grants, yeah. And like sponsorships and stuff as well. Like we don't really get any sponsorships, other than we have SBD who sponsor our team. But we're not super active in going out and getting sponsorships because we just don't have anyone who has time to do it.
Yeah, that's what makes it hard too. And then like you have to do so much. It's a lot of applying, and then I wouldn't even know how to go about getting like a big one. I can't wait for a day where powerlifting has someone gets to sponsor powerlifting that is like a brand name company, like Nike, Adidas, like that day. I think it'll come in our lifetime, but not super soon.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I feel like we're seeing a lot more sponsorship happening. Like brands do really want to be involved. And there are some really big brands in powerlifting now that have the money to be able to like invest in meets. But New Zealand again is like it's a smaller market again, so that's where it's a bit tricky.
Got you. You were coaching at the national meet too, right?
Yeah, I had two athletes competing.
Oh my God. I don't
um
know how you did that.
Yeah, the whole week is a bit of a blur, but that was a really good session. They both went 9 for 9, and they came like first and second, so they were both on the podium, which was really cool.
Nice. Are you like, well, obviously I know you have other jobs too, but do you have like a big roster of athletes or is it like more like a smaller part-time thing?
Yeah, so it's 1 day a week for me, and I have 11 athletes at the moment. Yeah, I think I will look to take like another day on, at some point soon, maybe.
So you're doing all the coaching in person.
No, this is online.
Okay, so it's like you have one day where you dedicate
Yeah.
to doing it. Got you.
Sorry, yeah. So I work like Monday to Thursday at the like little school that I work at, and then Friday is dedicated just to coaching.
Beautiful. At least I don't have to wait, what's the day? Like, is she in the gym for the day? Like
No, no, no. I don't really do any in-person stuff. It's like, yeah, just like too hard and amongst everything
no,
else.
I understand. I really like I love online so much. I've like done a sprinkle of like if someone's local and they're
Mm,
struggling with the lift really bad, like let's just meet up at the gym and we'll do 1 hour
yeah,
and a half. Like that's cool. But like
yeah,
every week, because that's like personal training at that point. I left personal training because I was like, I do
yeah.
not love this whole 1 hour per person, like, and then you need a lot of training sessions for powerlifting. So I'm like, this is not realistic. I'm about to be 5 times a week for 2 hours at a time. Like, no one's really doing that, in my opinion.
No, yeah. I think like you say, like sometimes it's really, really beneficial to have that in-person um session. And like I do tend to work more with but like beginners, so like it can be really helpful. It's funny, I
Mm.
actually started coaching by hosting a like 6 week long beginners powerlifting course that was in person. It was in the gym, and it was 2 sessions per week, and then a third session that was like programmed for them to do in their own time. And I just like I couldn't imagine doing that now because that was full on. And I only had like 5 people, I think, in each course. Like I was like, I think 5 is like the maximum that I can handle, like also in a busy gym, because like the gym
Yeah.
wasn't closed off, like it was in the evenings, like when everyone else is training, and I've got like 5 sort of more or less complete beginners trying to take them through the movements. And like I think it was like an hour and a half was the time for the session, which it was just, yeah, it was hectic. I don't think I'd go back. The occasional workshop, I'm like, yeah, it's cool to do stuff in person. I think that's probably like the main reason I would never go full-time coaching, is I just cannot see myself sitting behind a laptop like all day, like, and that being my whole job. But
Yeah.
you got to have a good setup.
Well, you know what though, I find myself now I'm taking on other jobs that are still working for myself essentially because I'm starting to lose my mind being behind this computer. I mean, I've been coaching full time since like 2020, like just for powerlifting. So I'm like, we're on year 4 of me behind this laptop. I gotta do something else. That's why you now see like other stuff on my page. I'm like, yeah, I'm going
Yeah.
out and doing other stuff. It's not powerlifting, but I leave the house now for stuff that is paid. This is great. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, I would definitely lose my mind a bit.
okay, so how is your own training coming along right now? And did it take a hit at all when you were getting closer to New Zealand Nationals?
Yeah. Um, So, like, I think leading up to the comp, I feel like I was doing really well. My training was actually going really well leading into nationals. I say that even though, like, I wasn't competing, obviously, but like, we timed the block so that I was going to basically deload the week of nationals because I probably wasn't going to be able to train much while the comp was on. I think I did actually get like 2 or 3 sessions in just in like the warm-up area, either like before the day started or once it ended. Um, but yeah, like that block was going really well, feeling really strong. And then nationals, and then the week after nationals, I was just so like exhausted. Um, and that was where it was like really hard for me to get back into things, like after the huge event. I don't know, like yeah, I didn't expect to be quite as burnt out as I was. But it's weird, I guess, like because it's all powerlifting, even though like in my mind it's very separate, like my own training versus like the volunteering I do, it kind of became the same thing that like I was burnt out from all that volunteering stuff, so I was burnt out from powerlifting in general. And like even
Mm.
doing my own training, I was like, I don't want to be here. I I can't be bothered. Like I'm too tired. I just want to like lie on the couch and like watch YouTube videos or whatever. But I think I know now, like I've been through that experience enough times to be like, okay, like this is temporary. Um, it will pass. Like I just have to, the only way out is through basically. Like I just have to like give myself as much time as I can, like, you know, leaving that like to-do list of all of that like volunteer responsibilities, and just allowing myself a bit of time to recover, and like my desire to train will return like as I am less burnt out. So I was still training, like kept training, but just like yeah, not really loving it. And I think this week, like we're probably like yeah, like maybe 4 weeks. Nationals is maybe like 4 weeks ago now. Like this is probably the first week where I'm starting to like enjoy training again. So it took a long time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which I wasn't really expecting it to be like that because I felt like I was pretty on top of things going into nationals. Like, I don't know. Sometimes it surprises you.
It's like a different version of post meet blues because you didn't compete yourself, but you're like, but I just planned this whole thing. So now I'm like, oh, like, and
Yeah, I
yeah.
didn't think that it would be like that, but it is.
And I didn't even think about that when you said it was so much powerlifting stuff that it wasn't the same thing as the training. But at the same time, you did so much powerlifting, you were just like, I'm tired of powerlifting, period. So that made it hard for you to train. And I would have never thought about that because they are separate. Like, especially me being a coach, I'm like, no, like anything I do coaching, volunteering is just separate from my training. But to
Mm,
do all of that work and then the week of you're there all day, like I understand, but like I don't want to see a squat, I don't want to see a barbell. Like
yeah, and like it's so funny because like during the week, like while we were at nationals, it was great, and like I loved watching people, and I had a little bit of FOMO. I was like, oh, like what if I had competed? Like, like it looks so fun. And then yeah, I think honestly I was just so tired like afterwards that everything became like too much. I was like, I just need to catch up on sleep and like, and I think yeah, it was tough because there was still so many jobs for me to do even after that like massive week where I'd put in these like really long days, and then I come out of it and it's like, okay, well now I need to do this. And like people asking me, this is my only one of my gripes about like volunteering is that like oftentimes people will see you in the gym and they'll come up and ask you something about like the Fed or like something related to it. And like that can sometimes make my training less fun because if someone's
mm-hmm.
like, oh, I just wanted to ask you about this thing, I'll be like, no, I just want to train. I don't want to think about that. Or like messaging me like on my like private Instagram. Not my page is not private, but it's my personal page, right? Um, and like sometimes I'm like, if it's an easy question, I'm happy to answer it. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's like a word of caution to people, like respect that like when people are in the gym, they're training for themselves, and like send an email. Because they can come back to an email when they have like capacity, when they have time for it. If they're like cornered in the gym, then they like have to answer.
Yeah. And that's a huge PSA because even I remember when I did personal training, nothing was worse than okay, now I'm trying to work out and I have like random people like ask me questions about their workout because they know I'm a trainer. And it's like
Yeah.
I'm half hour into my workout, I'm like, y'all are ruining my workout because you're asking me to help you with form. So I have to put my weight down and come over.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's just it makes
Yeah.
it super hard to focus. So I'm big on that. Like you see someone training for themselves, that's not the time to ask any questions, leave them alone, wave maybe
Yeah.
one time, that's it.
Yeah. That's their time. Like let them have their time because yeah, that's honestly like it's that like blurring of these boundaries and stuff that then like makes all of that seep into like your own training and your own like yeah, relationship with powerlifting. And then that's how it becomes like this big lumped together thing of being like, I'm sick of all of it.
Yeah.
And like my partner is a coach, and he's had that same issue of sort of like he loves to see people in the gym and like say hello, but if he's training at the same time as like lots of his clients, sometimes people will come up and ask him questions about their own training when he's trying
Mm-hmm.
to train. And so now he'll just avoid that time of the day altogether. Like he'll train when there's like no one in the gym so that he doesn't have to like deal with that, which is kind of sad. Yeah.
But needed. But needed. So next year with the schedule, it's gonna be a lot because you have Sheffield World Game. No, sorry, Worlds, then World Games, and then do you have two nationals again for Worlds?
I think I will have to, yeah.
That's
So
a
it's a big year.
that's a big year. Plus, you're gonna be doing being the president. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's probably like the most exciting year, but at the moment it feels like quite a lot. And it's a lot of travel, particularly from New Zealand. It's quite far. So
Mm-hmm.
we're sort of trying to work out what we can do to minimize that, like spending a bit of time closer, so that I don't have to come back and forth quite so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shall see.
What do you have any like? Are you trying to plan for certain ways to make next year easy enough for you to do all the travel, compete in all four of these meets, and still be like the president? Like, how are you gonna like make the load lessen when it's like you're so busy?
Yeah, I think like I've realized that like it's a lot to juggle and like I am getting burnt out like too much. Like I mean, yeah, at all is probably too much, but so I will probably step back from some of those responsibilities. Hopefully find someone else who can maybe step into that role. Like I said, like I've been doing a lot of sort of like documenting, writing tutorials, like making videos to try and help that transition and like future proofing for someone else coming into the role so that like it's all there. They can just read through it and like, work out how to do stuff. So that will take some pressure off of me. And I probably am going to work less next year. Um, yeah, so that I have a bit more time. Um, I think that the stress of trying to juggle all these jobs is just like not that sustainable, and particularly with those comps so close together. So yeah, I'm gonna like have a play at being a semi-professional athlete and like,
You
you
are.
know, just work like a little bit and then like be able to dedicate more time just to focusing on my training.
Yes. Because okay, which meet are you most excited for between Sheffield, World Games, Worlds? I'll say nationals, but I doubt nationals is the most exciting meet for you next year.
It's definitely Sheffield. Like I think like still nothing can like top the experience of Sheffield. It's so unreal. There's nothing like it.
There is nothing like it.
But that said, like I've never been to World Games. I've never watched World Games. I don't really know anything about that competition, in terms of like what the actual athlete experience is like. So that's a big unknown. I'm pretty excited to see what that's going to be like. And I love China. I've been to China like 3 times, so I'm
Ooh.
super excited to go back. Um, yeah, I think that will be super cool. I'm brushing up on my Chinese in
Wait, so have you
preparation.
have you gone just for vacations in China?
So the first time I went was because I was learning Mandarin in high school, and so I went on like a school trip, and that was like 2 weeks. And then I went when I was about 19, and I went over and I taught English for about half a year, um, in like northern China. And then I went back a couple of years ago. Actually, I say a couple of years ago. It was 2019. That's like that's 5 years ago.
It is.
And I visited a friend of mine, so I was there again like another few weeks or so.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it there. It's a super cool place.
What's the highlight of China for you?
It's a place of like extreme contrasts. Like there's like a bit of everything, like super fancy and then just like street food on the corner of like the road kind of thing. Like insane landscapes, like beautiful, like wide open expanses, like amazing, like natural environment, and then like crazy cities that are like super, super busy. Like they have like 100 and something cities that have over 1 million people, and you just would never even hear of, you would have never have heard of the name of that city before, but they've got like more people than like the whole population of New Zealand.
Oh my gosh. It's gonna sound like a weird question. Is China super clean?
It depends where you are,
Okay.
because some parts like they have people whose job it is to clean up like all the time. Like their job is to just constantly be cleaning. And like if you wake up early in the morning, you'll see like this like row of like ladies with of like a brush and shovel just like sweeping up the streets. So some parts are, but then some parts aren't. It's just, yeah, it's like I think it's just like it's so different. It's such a unique like place.
That's so cool. I'm asking that because when I went to Sheffield, that was like my third time out the country, but like I don't really count it because I've been to like Canada and I'm like Canada and USA are the same thing. I'm sorry. It is. And then I went to like Honduras once. So I was like, okay. I went to UK obviously for Sheffield and I was like, it's so clean. Like, and I live next to New York.
Really?
Well, I live next to New York City. So
Okay.
it's disgusting. I'm sorry. Like the New York City is absolutely atrocious. And especially London. London, yes, that was like there was no trash bins or trash.
That's so funny because like I feel like I had the opposite of
Oh my
experience.
God,
Like
really?
when we were in London just before Sheffield this year, I was like, because I lived in London for a little bit as well before I moved to China. Um, and I was like, man, I couldn't live here again. It smells bad. It's really dirty. It's really
What is
busy. It's really
happening?
noisy. Yeah, it's so funny. Like
Girl,
maybe it depends like where we were, but
I
I
guess
was
so.
like,
Because
this is
compared to New
way
York City, it was
dirtier.
the opposite. Because New York City is
Oh,
dirty and loud. I keep saying as if I lived there, but I am 10 minutes away and I spent a lot of time in New York City. But like, it's just, have you been to New York City before?
no.
It is so dirty. It is disgusting.
I've never been to the US before.
Oh my God, really? Come visit us. I'll show
That
you around New York City.
would be crazy. I
Wear
think like
boots.
if I came to the US, I'd have to like move up a weight class because I just wouldn't be able to resist.
We do have a lot of food. We do have a lot of food. In New York City, we'll have some good food for you. So London did not have good food for me, but New York City.
Yeah, I guess like there's a lot of Jamaican food in London. I think like that's one of the things that's like quite stood out to me because we don't really have that here. Lots of Indian food, like heaps different kinds of Indian food. We were staying down the road from this bagel place. And I went every morning. I don't know how I managed to fit that in like just before competing, but I had a bagel every morning. It was so good.
Do you like bagels? Come over to here to New Jersey and
Well,
try our
yeah.
bagels.
Um, I follow Chelsea Savitt on
Oh
Instagram, and
yeah,
like
you saw the bagels.
when she posts those bagels, I'm like, holy shit, they look
We have
so good.
we have the best bagels, period.
Yeah, I can believe that. I've seen the proof.
Okay, so speaking of food, and I know how much you love talking about weight classes, which is me being sarcastic. Um, are you like how close to 52 are you maintaining?
Not very.
Okay, cool.
Um, yeah, so like this is sort of the end of my like off season. So I haven't been tracking since Worlds pretty much,
Okay.
since before Worlds. So this is thankfully like I didn't have to do nationals. And actually if I'd done nationals, I would have competed as a 57 anyway. But it's really good for me to have like an extended period away from weighing myself, tracking my food, um, just restricting because that is super draining. But inevitably, yeah, so I'm a bit heavier now. And this the next few months is when I'll start to drop back down to the weight that I can cut from. And then I'll maintain more around that weight like throughout the competition season until probably
Yeah.
like post World Games.
Yeah. You're gonna have to. That's through August. That's through when's your nationals? September?
Yeah,
That's like right after World Games.
yeah.
It's a crazy year. I'm excited as a spectator. I can't say I'm envious. Like I'm envious in the case of like I wish I was like the best in the world, but I'm like I'm gonna just watch.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, eh? Because it's like on the one hand, you're like so grateful to be given these opportunities, but then it's like it's a lot of pressure and a lot of work, and I think like it kind of does become like your job a little bit, even though I'm not earning like a full income from powerlifting. Like I think my approach to it is a bit more like this is my job, like this is what I need to do, and like I'm gonna do what I need to do to like get to those competitions in like the right condition and like perform well because that is the expectation of me. I don't know,
Yeah.
like yeah, I think like you it becomes less about like I think you become less emotionally invested. You become a little bit more detached from it and be like, "Yep, I've just got to get it done."
No, that's fair. I feel like I've heard that from so many people who are world competitors. Like it's their job. Like, and
Yeah.
yes, you're not getting paid a full salary for it, but it's your job to show up and train. You can't miss session, which even people who don't miss sessions, it's like, yeah, but like you really have to make sure like you're on point and like you can't afford to like be lazy with your food because you have to make weight. Imagine traveling here and you tell the team coach you can't compete, you didn't make weight. Like you just can't. Like,
Yeah, and I guess like maybe that's the difference between like getting to that level is that like you're holding yourself to that standard just like no matter what. You just don't really give yourself an excuse to not be at that to not hold yourself to that standard. You're like, I have to have all my ducks in a row
yeah.
because I'm at that level, you know, like if you're being invited to these competitions, you're like, well, you know, I'm going to do all the things that I should be doing because I'm not going to fritter away that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Does the New Zealand government provide any financial aid to powerlifting? Like to you, really? I'm asking for you. Okay.
No. We're not powerlifting is like not an important sport here.
I mean, same in
um
America.
yeah, so there's like carded sports or something like that that get some kind of funding, but yeah, I think because we're not in the Olympics, we're not under any of that.
See, that's what's so interesting to me because, like, France, I know, like, when I spoke with Jod, like, they have aid. I'm like, so who determines who gets the aid? Like, oh,
Yeah. Ah, that would be good. Yeah. I mean, I still feel like I'm really lucky, like even in what I get from the support I get from SPD. But it's yeah, it's funny to think about. Like I think Ari and Kamisi posted like maybe sometime earlier this year or last year about how the world's like the application fees between each nation and like what people are getting. It's like so variable like in different countries. Like some countries they don't have to pay to even apply and they get given like the tracksuit and they get like their flights paid for and like you know some of them are getting like almost like a full ride if they're on that international team, the world's team, and then you get some countries you're paying like several grand and it includes like almost nothing.
Yep. You get
Yeah.
your experience.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like we kind of I think our approach in New Zealand is like we want to allow as many people as possible to go to Worlds because they're paying for it themselves, really. Like it's not on us to say like you can't go. Well, it kind of is, but if people are willing to invest that much money, we're like, you'll go for it because they have to pay their flights, they have to pay their accommodation. Like now, really, we only get the SBD team sponsorship is there, like they get their kit provided.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's it.
Got you. When it comes to Sheffield, I've been paying attention. So we now have Alba Bostrom in there, which I think that's amazing that we're gonna have so many like people competing in this class. Hold on,
Yeah,
I'm checking right now. I was
that's
like, is it
like
63? Yes, it is. I was double checking. In the
63.
63 kilo
Yeah.
weight class. Because now we have Leah and we have Meg and we have Alba.
Is the 63s going to be the 69s of this year? Who knows?
That's literally what I was wondering. That's
Mm,
my question.
yeah, that's pretty interesting. I was surprised, not surprised, like I knew that Alba, like I think that she definitely like earned her place. But I also wondered about Jess and like Jess Espinal and like because I feel like both of them were like, they really had like standout performances. Yeah.
At junior worlds. Yeah, I definitely thought about that too. I mean, I guess it kind of came down to like which battle do you want to add to the 63 battle,
Mm,
or do you want to just become an additional battle in there? So I definitely
yeah.
thought about Jess. Ugh. But that's how it goes though.
Too many good lifters, not
It's
enough
too many
spots.
good lifters. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think like it's getting to that point now where it's like they have a tough job because there's like a lot to choose from. And people are really, really trying to get those invites. Like they're genuinely battling for the invites only, which is super cool because that's like before we even get to the competition starting, like people have had to fight so hard to get that place.
I know. How do you feel about Shell pulling an Evie?
um Honestly, I thought this guy's crazy. But I think like he'd done a lot of the work before he even announced it. So I think like when he announced it, he's like already quite close.
Yeah.
Um, so and it seems like his strength is holding up really well.
Really well. Scarily well.
Yeah, I don't know like how that's possible, like I don't know how it was possible for myself. The same for like Agatha, like she didn't seem to have I mean, she
Like
totaled
any.
600, like
Yeah.
it was like what happened? Like how was she still so strong? And it seems the same for Shell. So I don't know, like, is it like a certain kind of genetics? Someone explain to me how this
That's all I'm gonna
works.
go with because I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's funny that this like there's this pattern emerging.
That you started.
And that I would never have like thought would ever be associated with me because it's like kind of not my vibe. Like I don't feel like I'm a massive advocate of like you should cut down to like win your weight class or whatever. But
I feel like you're the opposite of that. Like you're the one who's like, you should really just compete comfortably. I'm gonna cut down, win Sheffield, and be cutting for years now. Like you.
I don't know. I feel like there's a part of me that's like a little bit feels like a fraud because I'm like those aren't really my values, but it's what I'm doing. So um yeah, I don't know. Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, I think it goes with the value of like there's just a different set of rules for the elite of the elite. Like there just is. Because I think, yes, too many people cut. Like I talked to someone a few weeks ago, they were cutting for local meet, and like this person, he was like a super heavyweight, and he was cutting like 15 pounds for this 24-hour weigh-in, but like in a week's time. And I'm just like, I'm looking at his, not I didn't say this to his face, like this part of it, but I'm looking at his Dawson numbers. I'm like, I don't understand why you're killing yourself to do this, to maybe win
Mm,
this local meets. this is a lot of weight you are cutting in a week. This is insane. Right.
Yeah.
But then it's like when you're the best of the best and you could win the best competition we've ever had in powerlifting history, like, I'm sorry, like, we gonna have to make the risk of taking this cut. Like,
yeah, like the rules are different because there's so much more on the line, right? So you're willing to sacrifice more because of the potential reward. But then I think about it, and like someone said this to me last week, like those comps might be that person's Sheffield. Like maybe it's so important to you that like you're willing to make that sacrifice. I just think like if you're gonna do it, like you should get the right help and like do really consider like if it's worth that trade-off to your like life quality. And if you're doing it at the right time, like if you're really new to competing, you just want to be building muscle and like getting as strong as possible, and not trying to restrict too much. Yeah, but I think like if ultimately like you feel that it's worth it and like it's really important to you, then yeah, I guess that's the personal choice, but get good help, start early. Don't leave it like
till a
don't
week
leave it
out.
until the week out.
Yeah, I think for me, I used to be very extreme where I was like, unless you're trying to win nationals or above, do not cut, period. And now that I've been coaching for years, like I do have athletes who I guide through, and I don't mean the week of, I be guiding them through for months where I'm like, okay, like you really want to do this weight class, like overall we're cutting 8 pounds. Okay, cool. We'll cut 4 pounds of body weight and 4 pounds a week. Like because they have a goal, even if it's like I'm not gonna win, they still have a big goal. And I'm like, you know what? As long as they take do it safely and it's not like you're so lean that losing 8 pounds is actually detrimental to your health, that's fine too.
Mm.
I think
Yeah,
we also
yeah.
feel like everyone thinks they should cut. I'm like, well, okay, well, why is everybody doing it? Like,
Yeah, and I think like it's an important conversation to have and to like really interrogate like why you want to do that and like what's in it for you and like is this going to be the best thing for you long term? Like we because it's become a bit of a trend, like we do need to look quite closely at like the individual case, right? Of like, is this what's right for you? Rather than just being like, oh, I saw this person do it, so I'm gonna do it now. Yeah, it's not for every situation, right? Or for every person.
agreed. All right, last thing. What is one piece of advice you want to give somebody who wants to become a meet director or who wants to help run a national meet?
Oof. You got to get good at delegating. Yeah, find like get organized, work out all the jobs that you need to do, and then assign people to those jobs. And just like sometimes people are gonna say no, or they're gonna say yes, and then they're not gonna do it, and then you're gonna end up having to pick up the slack. And that's you kind of just have to let that go. But I think yeah, like the in terms of like in order to be able to do it multiple times, like longevity in that kind of meet director role is like you have to get good at roping other people into doing things and like breaking off bite-sized chunks of tasks, and assigning them to people, or you just end up doing everything.
That's good advice. Evie, thank you for joining me. I love talking to you. I can't wait to watch your 2025.
Oh, thank you.
You're like, I can't wait to watch it either.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think I feel like I'm sort of at the bottom of that hill, right? Like I'm about to start that climb and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be big, but I got it one step at a time.
One session at a time, one day at a time.
True that.
Yes.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for having me again.
Of course. And y'all catch you next time on the Power and Lifting Podcast.